Problem is there's no scapegoat in society. And we are giving our children too many excuses not to be responsible for themselves. And we wonder why the jails are filling up. Yeah, white supremacy, without question, miseducation, economic castration. But we got to look at the role of lack of responsibility in crime too. I spend a lot of time in jails, and there's a lot of folk in there simply because they didn't have no damn self-control. You learn that at home. And if you're raising a black boy, your number one responsibility is to teach him discipline. That's your number one thing, is to teach him discipline. Because if that boy doesn't have discipline by the time he leave your house at 18 or 21, I can almost predict he's going to spend some time in jail. No sexual discipline, no financial discipline, no emotional discipline, no academic discipline, no industrial discipline. I don't want to work. I don't want to learn. I don't want to control my sexual appetite. I don't want to control my emotions. Teach him discipline, or the white man will be waiting for him. Period, point blank, and end of story. The next disorder is emotional disturbance. So we talked about the learning disability. Let me go back to mental retardation. Let me explain why so many black children are diagnosed with it. When we talk about the intelligence test, and it is the intelligence test that we use to determine if a child is mentally retarded. The intelligence test has 4 scales on it, which result in 4 scores. And from these 4 scores, we get an overall IQ score. So when you say your child has a 100 IQ score, you're talking about the overall IQ. But that overall IQ came from 4 other scales. There is processing speed, how quickly your child can solve problems. There is working memory, how well your child can hold information in their mind and execute upon it. There's nonverbal reasoning, how well your child can solve problems for which they've received no previous education. All 3 of those are universal scales: memory, working memory, processing speed, nonverbal reasoning. Black, white, rich, poor, children do equally well on those if they don't have a serious type of an issue. The 4th scale is what accounts for the racial bias, the cultural discrimination, and that is the verbal comprehension index scale. The verbal comprehension scale of the IQ test is the scale that accounts for why white children do better than black children on these tests. The problem is when they talk about this in the newspaper and when they talk about this on CNN, they don't demystify it so you understand it. They just say the white kids are 15 points smarter than the black kids, so the black children must be intellectually deficient. They don't demystify. They don't tell you that black children do just as well as whites on the 3 other scales, that the only scale where they struggle is verbal comprehension. And what is verbal comprehension? These are the words and ideas and definitions that white people use that are normally foreign to the average black child's vocabulary, even if they are middle class. That's how they trip our kids up. It's vocab. It's concepts. It's definitions. Okay? And I would add to that, that verbal comprehension has nothing to do with intelligence. Verbal comprehension is dependent on the quality of education you received. Working memory, that's intelligence. That's not dependent on previous learning experience. Processing speed, that's intelligence. That's not dependent on previous learning experience. Nonverbal reasoning, that's intelligence. It's not dependent on previous learning experience. But verbal comprehension, definitions, vocab, that's based on previous learning experience. So then your next question would probably be, if that scale is responsible for why my child doesn't do as well as the children of other culture, and it has nothing to do with intelligence, why not take it out of the IQ test? Why not replace it with something else that is universal? Or why not just get rid of it altogether and leave the 3 other scales? Because you can derive an IQ score from the 3 other scales. You don't need verbal comprehension. You can get an IQ score from 3 scales. We don't need the 4th. So why not just take that out? Because if they take that out, it eliminates the white privilege that European children are naturally given on these tests. You're testing in my language. You're testing to my vocab. You're testing to my socioeconomic status. White privilege. If you take out the vocab, you take out white privilege. And now you potentially have a situation in America where the black children are earning higher IQ scores than the white children. So they will never take that out. Because if they take that out, that eliminates the reason why they give the test in the first place, which is to give a false impression that white children are more intelligent. And they have to give a false impression that white children are more intelligent to justify why so few blacks are in medical school, to justify why so few blacks are in law school, to justify why so few blacks own engineering firms and construction plants. The IQ test helps to explain away racism by putting the burden on the intellectual ability of black people. If you take out the racial bias, you might as well get rid of the test, because the only purpose of the test, and if any of you are wondering why they test so much, our kids are always being tested and tested and tested because the test score, I don't care if you're talking IQ, SAT, Nevada State Assessment, the test score is the new Jim Crow sign. I'm gonna say that again. The test score is the new Jim Crow sign. I'm gonna say it one more time. The test score is the new Jim Crow sign. What are you talking about? I'm talking about 60 years ago, if you wanted to go to a certain college, they would say whites only, colored only. They can't do that no more. Still racist, but you got to make it look scientific. So instead of saying your child can't come to the University of Nevada because they're black, you say your child can't come to the University of Nevada because their SAT score was too low. Are y'all following me? Instead of saying you can't go to med school because you're black, we'll say you can't go to med school because your MCAT score is too low. Instead of saying you can't go to law school because you're black, now we use a number. We look at what the average score is for black folk who take the test, and we set the admission score at a score that's higher than what the average black person does. And that way you effectively keep black folk out without saying white only. You just use a test score. They got to understand this. This is the new racism. They use numbers instead of words, because the numbers look like it's not racist, and the numbers look like it's not biased, and the numbers look like it doesn't discriminate. But it does the job just as effectively, if not more effectively. Testing is done in America to exclude certain groups of people from opportunity. Let me give you an example. You want to be a firefighter here in Reno. You go down to the firehouse, you say, hey, I want to become a fireman. They put you through the fire program, right? And they give you a test. Does that test predict how good of a fireman you can be? Does that test determine whether you can do your job well or not? No, it doesn't. That test doesn't tell the city anything about your ability to be an effective fireman. So if this test does not reveal my potential, my skill, my intellectual level, why do I have to take a test to be a fireman? Because it keeps black people out. Does the SAT test tell Harvard or Yale or Princeton or the University of Pennsylvania how well your child is going to do in college? Does it tell them whether or not your child is going to finish college? No, it does not. So why is every child in America expected to take the SAT test? Because it keeps black children out. And by the way, who invented the SAT test? Carl Brigham. Do your research on Carl Brigham, a white racist eugenicist who advocated the systematic extermination of black people. He is the inventor of the SAT test, people. All of this is racism. All of this is racism. But the new racism is to make it look like there is no racism. The new racism is to make it look like there is no racism. That's why Obama was made president. He said he was fighting for a change we can believe in. And that's exactly what you got. Michael Brown, a change you can believe in. Trayvon Martin, a change you can believe in. Worst unemployment rate for black folk in over 30 years, a change you can believe in. Highest dropout rate since the first Bush, a change you can believe in. Because you don't understand white supremacy. You thought voting for Obama meant a change in the American power structure's relationship with the black community. Are you crazy? A change you can believe in. And the saddest thing, what really bothers me about President Obama, he did nothing for black children this whole time he was in office. LGBTQ gave them landmark registration laws. Gay folk got more progress in 5 years under Obama than black folk got in 500. Illegal immigrants, landmark legislation. Latino, landmark legislation. White women, Equal Pay Act. What did black folks get? Nothing. Just what you deserve. Nothing. Because you don't fall in love with politicians. Big mistake we made. I called it 8 years ago. When Obama get out of office, we're going to be worse off than when he went in because you fallen in love with a politician. That's ignorance. I hope we learned our lesson. You don't fall in love with elected officials. You come to agreements with elected officials with money and voting power. That's what you do. You use them like they use you. But black folks, politically ignorant as we are, turned it into a religious thing. Voting for Obama became a religious movement. Pastors all across America talking about, yeah, God predicted this. God sent Obama. In the mosque, God sent Obama. I'm tired of it, quite honestly, because we keep letting white folk outthink us. We just keep on letting. They're going to do it again. They say you Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson. You go floating again. Question is, when do we learn from it and start changing our political behavior? Well, first of all, you can't change your politics until you change your spending habits. Boom. As long as we remain conspicuous consumers, we will get nothing. Votes do not control money. Money controls votes. If you ain't got no money, you ain't going to get nothing done by the people in office. Pow. I don't care if their name is Obama, Bush, Hillary Clinton, or whoever else.